Daf Mem Amud Beis, 3 lines from the top to 2 dots. Val Kulam im Omer Shahakol. So the Mishnah said that on any of the types of food that he eats, if he said Shahakol, he's Yaitza. The different foods have their own specific brachas, but B'diavad, if he said Shahakol Niya B'dvorai on all of them, on any of them, then he's Yaitza. Itma Rav Huna Amar Chutz Min Apas Min Hayayin. Rav Huna says, however, with the exception of bread and wine. On bread and wine, they have their special brachas, and if you don't make the special brachas on bread and wine, you're not Yaitza. Rav Yochanan Amar Afilu Pas V'Yayin. Rav Yochanan says, no, even Pas V'Yayin, that you are Yaitza B'diavad with a Shahakol. Name a Ketanoi. Let's say that this follows the machlokes of the following Tanoi. Raw Pas, if a person saw bread, V'Amar Kaman No Pazu. He saw bread and he said, how beautiful is this bread? Baruch HaMokim Shabaram. Baruch HaMokim Hashem that created this beautiful bread. Yotze. He's Yotze. Ra Ta'ina V'Amar Kaman No Ta'ina. So he saw a fig and he said, how beautiful is this fig? Baruch HaMokim Shabara. Yotze. He's also Yotze. Divra Mer. Yotze Aimer. No. He says, you're not Yaitze. He says, Kol HaMishanim Yabesha Tavacham Bebrachos Lo Yotze Yadei Chayv. Also, if anybody changed the nusach of the bracha that the chum were kaveh, the matbeya that they were kaveh in brachas, you're not Yaitze. You have to say it according to the way the chachamim were misak in the bracha. So name Rav Huna the Amar Rav Yosi. Let's say Rav Huna follows the opinion of Rav Yosi. Rav Huna said that if you said shahakol on bread and wine, you're not Yaitze. Let's say he follows the sheet of Rav Yosi, who says if you're mishanim at beisha tavach chachamim, you're not Yaitze. Rav Yochanan and Rav Meir, and Rav Yochanan, who says that you are Yaitze, follows Rav Meir, who says in this case you're Yaitze as well. So this seems to be very difficult, because how can we say that Rav Huna follows the sheet of Rav Yosi? It seems to be that Rav Yosi says if you make any change, if there's any deviation from the matbeya the chachamim made, the nusach of the bracha, you're not Yaitze. Now our Tana clearly says that on fruit, on vegetables, and on fruit, if you said Yahakol, you are Yaitze. Now even though the chachamim instituted a special bracha for vegetables and fruit, but it's clear, the Tana says that if you said a shahakol on them, you are Yaitze. It's only bread and wine which is the dispute over here. Now Rav Yosi seems to be saying if there's any deviation, you're not Yaitze. How could that be the opinion and the sheet of our Tana? Rav Yosi seems to say that if there's any deviation, you're not Yaitze. So many of the Achronim want to say that when Rav Yosi says Kol HaMishana, according to this Havamina, now we'll see the Gemara is going to fall off from this approach, but according to this Havamina, when Rav Yosi says Kol HaMishana Mabei Shetov Chachamim, he's not really referring to the case of the Ta'ena. He's not referring to the case of the fig. On a fig, if you said Shahakol, you'd be Yaitze. What he means to say is specifically on the case of bread. Why by bread? What's the issue by bread and wine? Bread and wine is a special bracha. They have significance on their own. Bread and wine is a bracha that the chachamim made on a specific case because of the chashivas of this min. On bread and wine, there it's a bracha pratis. This approach is going over here is that at this point in the Gemara, that when the Chazal institute a bracha pratis, like on bread and wine, you can't change that. Because the bracha is not only on the benefit that you're getting, it's not only because of the hano that you're getting, it's because of the chashivas, the importance of the item itself. Bread is very chashiv. It's a staple. We make kiddush on wine. We can make kiddush b'diavad on bread as well. It's a chashuv min. Chazal made a special bracha thanking Hashem for this special significant item. There, you can't change. On other brachas, which are bracha klolis, bori priha doma, bori priha eitz, it's not talking about a specific fruit. It's not talking about a specific vegetable. Even though it's a more refined, it's a more detailed bracha than a shahakol, but it's not a bracha prat, it's a bracha klolis. So changing from one bracha klolis to another one, from adoma to shahakol or bori praise to shahakol, you be yaitza. But a bracha pratis, a bracha klolis to a klolis, you yaitza. A bracha pratis to a klolis, from a geffen and bread, which is a pratis, to a shahakol, this approach holds that you're not yaitza in such a case, because it's the bracha is for the min itself, and therefore you have to do it exactly the way the chomer mesaken to give sheva chaydah for the special min that the Rebbeinu Shalom created. So I'll go upon him. The Gemara says, let us say the Rav Huna says Rav Yosef Rav Yochanan Damar Kramer Amalach Rav Huna. No, not necessarily. Ana the Amre Afelo l'Ramer. I could be following the sheet of Ramer as well. Ad kan loikom Ramer hasam. Ramer only said over there that you're yoitza kamad kishmad the pas. Why did Ramer say in that case that you're yoitza, even though it was a deviation from the nusach of the bracha? But at least you mentioned the name of the pas. Aval heichtuloi mitkash made the pas. I feel the Ramer moida. But if the name of the pas is not mentioned at all, you didn't mention the bread. Even Ramer would be moida. Perhaps we might have that you're not yaitza. Rav Yochanan Amar Loch, and Rav Yochanan says on Damar Fil Rav Yosi. I could be following the sheet of Rav Yosi. Ad kan loy kam Rav Yosi hasam el mishum de kam brach loy tekin rabban. Why did Rav Yosi say in this case that you're not yaitza? Because he made up his own bracha. He made up his own nusach of the bracha. But if he said a shahakal, which is a bracha that Chazal Mesaken, that's an established bracha. Perhaps Rav Yosi would even be maida as well. Binyamin the shepherd Karach Rifte, he was eating bread. Va'omar, he said the following bracha: Baruch Morei the high pita. He said, Baruch to the master of this bread. Rav said, he's yaitza, that's a valid bracha. Rav kol bracha she'ein b'haskar she'ein in a bracha. How can it be a valid bracha? Rav himself said, if you don't say the Shem Hashem, it's not a valid bracha. More answers, Dama bracha Rachmana more the high pita. He said, Baruch Rachmana. Baruch Rachmana more the high pita. I frag the Gemara of Habin and Shalish brachas. For benching, and the Gemara is assuming at this point that it's referring to bracha achroin. For benching, you need 3 brachas. What he means to say is not for benching. Yaitza bracha rishayna. He said the bracha rishayna, instead of saying the nusach of a mitzvah, he said it in Aramaic and he said it in this way. He's yaitza the bracha rishayna. Frank the Gemara, my kamashmal. If that's the case, what's the chiddush? You mean to say afagav dam ralosh chol? Well, in this case, he's really saying a bracha of a mitzvah. It's really in effect the bracha of a mitzvah. He's just saying it in not a literal translation, but in effect, he's saying the same bracha, and he's saying it in Aramaic. So what's the chiddush? That you say it in Lashon Chol? My kamashan afgam Lashon Chol, that you yaitza even though you didn't say it in Lashon HaKodesh? Tanina, we learned, Velo Ne'am Orim B'chol Lashon. These are the following things that can be said in any language. Parsha Saita, the Parsha of the Saita, Vidui Maisa. When a person, after the 3rd year, he has to make a vidui that he was mafresh all of the trumas and meisters and bikurim, everything that was upon him. He conducted himself properly in this manner. This confession, so to speak, this declaration can be said in any language. Kriyashma and Kriyashma Utfila Birchas HaMazon. So we see clearly that Birchas HaMazon, they can be said in any language. The Gemara Itzrich. No, there is a chiddush over here. I might have thought it's only if it's a literal translation. Then, if you say it in a foreign language, you're yaitza. But if it's not a literal translation, like for example in this case, that it's not word for word a translation, it conveys the same idea, but it's not a literal translation, you might think you're not yaitza. So kamash malan, that's a chiddush that you are yaitza. Gufam Rav kol bracha she'in b'haskaras Hashem and a bracha. Rav said, if a bracha does not mention the name of Hashem, it's not a valid bracha. Rav Yochanan Amar kol bracha she'in b'malchus ein a bracha. It's not enough to mention the same Shem Hashem. It has to be melech olam. You have to mention the malchus, the dominion of the Rebbeinu Shalom. Omar by Mikavasi the Rav Mistavre, it's Mistavre to say, like Rav is saying, that you only need the Shem Hashem, the Tanya Lo Yavarti Mitzisecha. He says in the Yomi Masechet, he says, Lo Yavarti Mitzisecha Lo Shachachti. What does that mean? Lo Yavarti Melavarech. I didn't transgress anything. What does that mean? I did not eat without a bracha. V'lo shachachti melahaschar shimcha olav. And I did not forget to mention your name. When I said the bracha, I mentioned the name of Hashem. Now it says only mention your name. Vilu malchus loikatani. It doesn't say malchus. Rav Yochanan Tani, he says no. Lo shachachti melahaschar shimcha umalchuscha olav. It's both the shame and the malchus. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech ha'olam. Let's see the next Mishnah. Va'al davar she'en gidul min ha'aretz. So continue on with the types of brachot and the soul of the brachot, things that do not grow from the ground. Oimer shahak al niya b'dvara. He makes a shahak ala choimetz on vinegar. So wine that turns sour and is now called vinegar. Va'al ha'noivlois va'al ha'guvoy. And ha'noivlois, and the more will explain what this is, and guvoy locust. Oimer shahak al niya b'dvara. He makes a shahakol. From Yehuda calls for min kolola in mevarchen alav. He says anything that's a min kolola. So the noivlois, as we'll see, is their dates that have been ruined by the sun. That's a min kolola. It's been cursed, so to speak. A locust caused destruction. It's a min kolola. He says you don't make a bracha on a min kolola. New halach in the Mishnah, fun of minim harba. If he has different types of food in front of him, Rabbi Yehuda Omer im yesh beineim min shiva alav hu mevorach. The one that he makes a bracha on is if there any of the min shiva of the 7 species that Eretz Yisrael nishtapcha b'hem were praised with them. That's the one you make the bracha on. The Chum say you make it on the chavim, the one that you like best. That's the one you should make the bracha. That's the one that's appropriate for the bracha. You give praise for the one that's most precious to you. That's the one you make the bracha. The Gemara will discuss this in great detail. Tan Rabbanon al davar she'en gidul min ha'aretz, things that do not grow from the ground. Kigon basar, like meat and basar behemoths v'chayis v'ayvus v'dogim, any type of meat or fish. Oimer shahakol niya b'dvora. Ala cholav, ala beim, on milk and on eggs, ala gvina and cheese, oimer shahakol. Ala pash ifsha, on bread that's moldy, vala yayin shehikrim, or wine that started to spoil, vala tavshel shavar tzurasa, on a cooked dish that also started to spoil, oimer shahakol. Now, these have to be edible. They're not things that are spoiled to the degree that a person wouldn't eat it. A person is getting hana from him, but it loses its special significance because it started to spoil. It doesn't have the special significance that it had before that requires a special bracha. He makes a shahakol. Val melech and salt, val salmis and brine, val kimin and petrius, mushrooms and truffles, oimer shahakol. The bracha is shahakol. You're telling me that mushrooms and truffles don't grow from the ground, and that's why you don't make an adoma, you make a shahako? If a person makes a neder from things that grow on the ground, he's also on things that grow from the ground, but he is permitted to have kimmel praise. It's not called peres haaretz. Mushrooms and truffles are not called peres haaretz. But v'im omar called gedule karkalai. But if he says anything that grows from the ground, he doesn't say peres haaretz. He says called gedule karkalai also after kimmel petrius. Then he's also on kimmel praise also. So you see that they do grow from the ground. So why don't you make a adoma? Why do you make a shakol? Omar Abaya mirba ravimare. It's true. They do derive their sustenance from the ground, but they don't draw it directly from the ground. Meaning, mushrooms and truffles, if there's a stone, if there's a rock, if there's a piece of wood, a tree trunk, they'll be able to grow on that. They don't have to go directly from the ground. It's not like potatoes or other types of priya doma. They derive their nourishment from the ground, but they don't have to be attached to the ground. So therefore, they're not called peres haaretz, but they do derive nourishment from the ground. They are called gedule karka. It says things that are not gidul haaretz, and you're telling me that mushrooms are gidul haaretz. Rather, you should amend it to learn something which is not yonik from aretz, something which does not grow directly from the ground. You don't make an adama. So therefore, mushrooms you make a shahakol. So the Mishnah said on those my noivlas. What are noivlas? Rav Zera of Rabbi Loich Haramara Bushlei Kamer. One says that it's Bushlei Kamer, that he says that it's burnt by the sun. So they're inferior, they're dates, but they're burnt by the sun, and therefore they're inferior, and therefore you don't make the special bracha that you normally would make on dates, because this is an inferior an inferior species. One says that it was blown by the wind. The wind blew them off the tree, and they're lying on the ground. Tanan, Rabbi Yehuda said in the Mishnah, anything that's a min klala, a curse min, you don't make a bracha. So if you learn that this is referring to the case where it's burnt by the sun, so it's like a klala, it's been spoiled, it's been ruined, we understand why Rabbi Yehuda would argue and say you don't make a bracha. I know the karla min klala, that's why it's called a min klala. But if you learn that it was blown away by the wind, my min klala, why would it be a min klala? It's not a min klala, it's perfectly good, they're perfectly good dates, it's just that it's blown off the tree by the wind. Where it says it's not referring to this case. It's referring to the other cases, it's referring to the locusts, it's referring to the spoiled things, but it's not referring to this case. Some say, if you say that it's burnt by the sun, I understand why you would make a shahakal. If it's blown off the tree by the wind, shahakal, why would you make a shahakal? They're perfectly good dates. You should make a Vori Priya dates. It's just blown off the tree by the wind, but they're the same as any other dates. El Gemara says, and in our Mishnah, when it just says noivles without any adjective, just says noivles, then it's referring to the sun-scorched dates, and that's what the Mishnah is referring to, and it's a min klala because they're inferior, and in our Mishnah, that's what it's referring to. Ki pligi, they're arguing not in our Mishnah, they're arguing in a different case. Ki pligi noivles tomorrow, where the lashon is not noivles, it's noivles tomorrow. There's an adjective over here, noivles tomorrow. So over there, they're arguing, what does that mean? This nana kalam sheba demai. So demai is produce that was purchased or received from an amaretz. The chacham resakin, we're concerned the amaretz did not properly take the maisras. You have to be mashberish the maisras. You have to take maisras from it. But there are cases where we're makel. When we say that we're not machmer, you don't have to. What is the case of that Hashisin? The Gemara will explain what each of these are. Hashisin v'arimin v'uzrodin b'nai shuach b'nai shikma v'gufnin v'nispa v'noivlas tomorrow. So here it says noivlas, but it says noivlas tomorrow. So over here we're going to have a machlekes what this means exactly. Shisin, what are shisin? Amar Baruch Han Amar Rav Yochanan min tain. It's a type of tain, an inferior type of fig. Rimin is kandik. Rimin are lotus. Oh, he's radin tulshi. They're sorb apples. They're white figs, which are an inferior quality. Shikma a sycamore. Gufne shili are late growing grapes, which don't fully ripen and are inferior. Nisva is pircha. Nisva is, like we learned before, are the berries from the caper bush. Noivlas tomorrow. So now we're coming to our point over here. Noivlas tomorrow. Rabbi Loiv Rav Zera Charma Bush Lekame. Here is where we have the machlekes. One says that it's burnt by the sun. V'charamar tamid zika, that it's blown off the tree by the wind. So we have these cases, and we say these are the kule of demai. And here, where it says not simply, it doesn't say simply the case of noivlis. It says noivlis tomorrow. Here we have the machlekes. So here we say, if you say bush lekama, they're burnt by the sun. We understand what's a kalam shebedamai. We say sveikenu the potter. It's a suffix. Since they're inferior quality, we're not so concerned that he would not be mafresh maisras. They're not so valuable. So sveiken, if you're not sure, you're makel, you don't have to take maisras. Svegen the pot havadoin chaya. But if it's certain, then you have to. If you're certainly, then you would have to take over here Maestros, you'd have to be mafresh. If you're not sure whether the Amoras was mafresh Maestros or not, you don't have to. But if you know he didn't, there's a type of fruit that you have to take Maestros from. But we're only maker if it's a suffix. But if you learn this Tamar the Zika, Vadoin Chayiv, why would you say there should be no Chiyav of taking Meiser in any event, even if you know that the Amoritz was not mafresh? If it's blown off the tree by the wind, it's lying on the ground, it's Hefker. And something which is hefker, which is no owner, which is ownerless, there's no chiv of meisers. So why would it be dafka of a suffix? If you're telling me this is a definition that it's blown off the tree by the wind and it's hefker, there's no chiv of meiser to begin with. More answers so gar. We're talking where it's such a large quantity that it was picked and taken. It was hefker, but it was such a large quantity, they made a big pile of it. Now, something which is hefker, there's no chiv meises. But if there's such a large quantity, the chachamim were misaken, they were geyser that there should be, you have to take meises, because people think, well, if you decide there's a large pile of it, must be that he harvested from his land. It's probably not hefker if there's such a large quantity. So in that case, the Chum said you do have to take Maestros. So that's what we're talking about over here. There was a geiren of this type of that were blown off the tree, of the dates that were blown off the tree by the wind. And they were blown off the tree by the wind, and there was, even though they're hefker, but he had such a large quantity of them, and they're masaken, that you have to be mafresh meisters. But if it's a sofek, you purchased it, or you received it from the Amoretz, it's a sofek, whether he took meisters or not, we're mako. Lekichin was parted from Meiser, but I saw Goiran if he made a pile hook full of Meiser. There's one different version that says Bishlam Lamandam Tamar the Zika that says that it's the date that were blown off the tree by the wind. Hainu the Haki Karle Noivlis Tama Vasagamale tomorrow. So we understand why there's a different nusach. Why in some places it just says Noivlis, and some places it says Noivlis tomorrow. Must be that they're two different types. The one is that the dates were burnt by the sun, and one case is that it's blown off the tree by the wind. We understand why it uses a different lotion. But if you say that no, in both cases we're talking about that it was burnt by the sun, so nisna idavidi noivlis tomorrow, idavidi noivlis tama, let it say the same lotion, either noivlis or noivlis tomorrow. Why does it switch the language, the nusach, the lashon from one case to the other? Doesn't that show that they're two different species? Kasha and chanami, it is a kasha.